Hi, everyone. Hi,
Hi,
Senait.
Deborah. Hi, Senait.
How are you both?
Very good.
Good, good. Nice to see you, Habib. It's been a while.
Yeah, very long while. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Much better than I was yesterday. Thank you so much for understanding.
I can imagine. Sorry
Oh, I
about
see a giraffe at the back. Is that
Sorry?
no? I see a giraffe at the back of your Habib. Oh my
that.
gosh, that's gonna distract me. That's gonna distract me because I love giraffes.
I was like, I have a giraffe, really?
It's
Can you see
it's
it?
always a talking point. It helps as a talking point
Yep.
for each conversation. Yeah.
Nice. How many
My
signups
son.
have we?
Great. Thank you once again for joining. This session it will be focusing on helping social impact organizations with a step-by-step approach on how to strengthen their financial viability. If you've read the case study, this is built on the back of earlier work done by Senait with Dignitas as part of the Impact at Scale Labs journey for Dignitas in strengthening their financial viability. Deborah will also be sharing insights into how organizations can better prepare for this journey in our section based on work done on LeadNow. And I'll be moderating this session. I work at GSF as Innovation Manager, and I've been supporting with sharing evidence of what works within the Impact at Scale Labs based on our interaction with other organizations in the labs in our community. So during the session, we'll be covering some introductions about GSF and the DVF framework in general. Then we dive straight into the financial viability and social impact, which will be led by Senait. Then we go on to discuss some takeaways for Dignitas from 12:15 to 12:25. And as we keep to time, then we discuss in more detail the building blocks for financial viability. And then we have a section for questions and answers. And during this webinar as well, we have two polls that I'll be sharing. The first poll will assess our understanding at the early stage of the conversation, and then finally at the end. So please do respond to the polls when we share them. This webinar iterate and for us to share how fast we're growing as an organization. We're still a collaborative community. We're still an innovation accelerator, and then we're supporting organizations in the non-state sector to build partnerships with the overall goal of improving education at scale for underserved children in low and middle income countries. So far, we've grown to over 142 organizations who are serving over 100 million children across the world through over 1 million schools. Quite the size. Yeah, I'll quickly transition into setting the context for the viability question, which is at the labs, at the Impact at Scale Labs, where we're supporting organizations to scale various components of their operations, of their solution. We use what we call the DVF framework. And within that DVF framework, there's a component focused on viability, which is examining an innovation stability, an innovations revenue model, how they are set up to for sustainability over a long period, especially as they're preparing to scale. So this is where questions around financial viability comes in. And this is the point where I'm happy to hand over to Senait to take us deeper into that conversation. Yeah, over to you, Senait.
Thank you. Thank you so much. GSF, Habib, thank you so much. And I'm I feel very grateful to be here today and being able to share some of the learnings. As introduced before, I'm Senait. I do generally strategic consulting, but coaching. I have over 20 years of experience, and I bring that to this just conversation, but also the work that we've done around how do we bring sustainability, financial viability into social impact. Having worked in developing context earlier parts of my life, and then work with private sector organizations. Before I go into the objectives, I'd just like Deborah to introduce herself, and then I can dive into the objectives and then take it from there. Deborah.
Sure. Thank you so much tonight. Hi, everyone. It's really great to see you here. My name's Deborah Kimathi, and I'm the Strategy and Partnerships Advisor at Dignitas. We've been a member of GSF for a number of years, and we have the real privilege of being part of the inaugural Impact at Scale Labs, which was a huge learning and growth process for us. And this, what we'll share today is just one glimpse from one angle into that learning and growth. So we're really happy to share that. Just a quick intro to Dignitas. Our vision is a world in which all schools are vibrant places for children to thrive and succeed. And we prioritize working alongside teachers and school leaders and really enabling them to ensure all schools can be those vibrant places. So yeah, back to you tonight. Thank you.
Lovely, Deborah. Just really pulling on that string around, this is just one aspect, one part of your journey in the impact at scale. So that's really lovely to set it up. I am aware, I'm not sure how many people are attended, there are about 14 people here. And I know that some of you are part of the Impact at Scale Labs, but also some of you are just here as part of the community, so welcome. Before we start, I always like to set intentions and just kind of baseline or just kind of create an expectation of what the session is going to be. I know that financial viability is a massive and huge complex topic. And so what I want to make sure to say is we did read through some of the objectives you had or just what you wanted to get out of this seminar. And some of that was ranged from how do we move from a free service organization to a fee-paying organization and everything in between, right? So I'm hoping that the way we set up this seminar, it will kind of at least, if nothing else, give you a perspective or an insight into how one organization in the impact at scale approach some of these questions, and hopefully that helps you in your journey. So I just wanted to set that up. So as an objective for today, we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to try not to be so fast in the way I speak, but also just give you enough time for reflection. Just acknowledging that we are all on this journey, the impact at scale journey, and each organization has a unique approach to it, and the situations, the environment, your capacity, your capabilities are all part of what makes it unique. So this is just a reflection on saying we understand it's a unique point of view that we're providing in this context. So using Dignitas' experience and the work that we'll do, the first part of this seminar is just to kind of navigate the big picture, align on terms that we have, because I'm sure if I stop this conversation and say, well, give me a definition of financial viability, will be very different to mine. So this is a way of just sort of setting the context at the beginning of what we mean by the word itself, but also just how we navigate the bigger landscape. And then the second half of the seminar is to say, okay, we drill down, what are the trees of this, which is how did we try and do it in the Dignitas example. So that's kind of the two parts of this seminar. So using our experiences just to really connect and collaborate. Again, this is an amazing platform that shares learning and accelerates learning. And we test, we come back, we say this worked, this didn't work, and and nudge the thought process forward. If nothing else, just see how it was done in this context. Does it nudge you to think differently? That would be great. So connect and collaborate. Share, learning, and strengthen. So using the desirability, viability, feasibility tool within GSF, sort of provide a framework showing some of the key areas that we approach. That's kind of the two main objectives. Okay. Questions and answers. Do you talk about this, Habib? How do if people have questions, they just write on the chat, right, as we go along, so you don't forget.
Yeah. Please write in the chat if you have any questions.
Yeah. All right. Next slide, please. So I think we have about 2-3 minutes where you're going to share a poll with a group. And this poll is really a very simple couple of questions. That's great, that's fantastic. And really it's to set the kind of conversation based on some level of understanding of as a group, how do we define financial viability, but also what connections we make between those two. So I'm going to give 2 minutes, then let me know when we're done.
The most people have participated now, based on the people here. So actually everyone has participated. Yeah, okay, pretty much everyone has participated now. Okay, so I'll end the poll and then I can share. Can you see the result of the poll?
Okay. So this, we like to do this at the beginning because it kind of has a way of defining how, like sort of aligning us on what we mean, like when we talk about financial viability and how really different it is to everybody's definition, but also experience. So majority are divided between, it's a steady pipeline of income, a diversified set of income streams, effective budgeting and forecasting, balancing costs and benefits. It's a combination of both. But this is done in a specific way, of course, right? Polling is not really that scientific. So, but it gives you an idea of it's one and above all, but also secondary, it's a combination of all, right? So the way we'll talk about financial viability in our definition later. And then in terms of what connections do we make? The polling answer, yeah, there you go. So I'm not surprised. There is a strong link between financial viability and social impact. In a way, that question it also taps into some people who haven't thought about it. So it's great to see that combination of, I know there's a strong link. I'm not really sure I've unpacked that, or I haven't really thought about it too much. None of you are saying it's not significant, otherwise you wouldn't be kind of on this call. So it's just a way of kind of testing what we think about it. And in the next slide is just really a 2 or 3 minute conversation or just reflection on what we believe, what beliefs we hold, right? Between financial viability and social impact, right? So this is one of those situations where the mindset that we bring to this from the work that I've done with Deborah, but also all the research that's been done around this is financial viability is such a broad and complex topic. The first thing that happens when people in social impact organizations of different scales, when it comes to thinking about financial viability, there's some level of overwhelmness that comes with it, right? That there's a distinction between financial viability and social impact. So what we're trying to do within this seminar and this sharing of learning is to try and come back with a mindset of simplifying and clarifying, detaching, and looking at it from a broader perspective, which kind of allows each organization, wherever they are, to be able to identify or have an awareness in terms of where they are in that financial viability journey as we defined it, and what if they wanted to move forward, where that could lead. So that kind of is part of what we're trying to do. Is the belief we hold traditionally has been very much black and white, really, and trying to navigate that gray area around financial viability for social impact organization can be very overwhelming. And I've worked with clients in different organizations with different approaches to this. So hopefully by the end of today, the belief we hold can be a little bit, I want to say, you could hold it lightly, not in a, it's insignificant, but just the fact that let's look at the bigger picture first, and then try and see how we can be open and curious about where we are in this journey, but what we can do next. That's kind of the energy or the mindset that we put to this. Having said that, what do we mean when we're presenting this information today in our learning to the community? How did we define those terms? So again, it's not scientific, it's one approach. It's how Dignitas, how working with Dignitas helped, it served them to define it this way, and it served the project to define it this way. There's a distinction we're making between financial viability and financial sustainability. Majority of the time in context, in experiences of research, but also work with other organizations, sometimes they're conflated, sometimes they use the same, sometimes they're separated, sometimes it's inversed. So for the purposes of our project, financial viability is the ability of an organization to generate enough revenue to cover its operational cost. So right now, do you have enough revenue to cover your operational cost? As you are, that's financial viability in our definition, right? And in terms of the impact scale. So does it serve your impact, right? Financial sustainability then for us is like extending it to, okay, you have enough revenue that you're generating that covers your operational cost, but you're making a surplus, in quotes, profit. And I say in quotes profit because, again, that could be a whole other seminar about language around financial viability. So we're just going to say surplus, benefit values, profit, to put towards your expansion and growth. So we separate those two. And I think it's really important to say that at the beginning. Financial viability is a point in time, current time. Your net, you can cover your operational cost. Financial sustainability, you have enough to grow, to scale. Yeah. Okay. So with that in mind, so if we have financial viability and financial sustainability, and we look at financial viability in context of social impact, I'm not going to spend too much time, we are not going to spend too much time talking about the funding landscape has changed. It's different times, the challenges that organizations have, social impact organizations, for, in terms of increased demand and reduced funding. But what is important about this is the context of financial viability right now is within the frame of social impact organizations need to really reflect on the resilience and sustainability, need to reflect on income generation and revenue models that are refined and revised to support their impact, their scale up, and the funding required for that, right? So we are offering in this approach that financial viability is a key first step in achieving financial sustainability. So in other words, we are offering or suggesting that financial viability is the first step in achieving scale up from that perspective, yeah? It's critical for the long-term success as you navigate funding challenges, economic fluctuations, and evolving program needs. Now, another thing that we kind of maybe put on a placeholder is the definition of financial viability from a financial health perspective. And I think maybe that can come up at some point, but I think just if I could just sort of say, then with this kind of approach and this rationale, then adapting innovative strategies and best practice to ensure robust financial health becomes imperative. So if you could draw a line, so financial viability, financial sustainability, but underneath that line that's ongoing, right, is the financial health bit, right? Hope that makes sense. Okay. Right, just change my right. So with that, sort of having had this broader definition of what we mean by the term financial viability, structuring it around the context of social impact, the approach that we took, if we are to apply financial viability early on, yeah, then it enables and shifts the mindset around how we build and how we prioritize and how we focus our energy and activities and choices in our programming and organization. So if you will, taking the financial viability as a lens early on, and if we say that the whole context, the financial viability journey is like a beginning at the impact assessment. I would say impact as well as organizational assessment. I've just said, we've just highlighted the impact part of assessment, but part of the assessment of the project includes other aspects of assessments, including impact, but also organizational capacity and all that assessments that you have at the beginning of any project or any initiative. So impact assessment that leads towards a sustainable impact at scale. And in between, you're navigating this financial viability, financial sustainability journey. So if we brought, what would be possible is a question. What would be possible if you took the lens of financial viability and brought it early on in the programming towards achieving your financial sustainability and impact scale? That is what we were testing as it were in this project, right? So if you brought it on, how will it impact differently or otherwise? So that was the main prism, is to bring it forward, okay? Then the next slide is really like sort of distilling that. So if you look at the top part, if nothing else comes out of this seminar today, is to hope that what we're sharing will give you an insight into or an awareness of where you are as an organization on this journey, right? So first we're sharing the journey, but where are you on this journey? But also give you a reflection of what would you like your organization to move to on this journey? So an awareness of where you are, an awareness of where you want to be, and then maybe an awareness and a reflection on what tools are available, both the GSF toolkit, but also from this seminar, that would help you nudge forward either your thinking or actions towards this journey. So where are you? Where would you like to go? And what resources are available, either in your thinking process or actually doing it. So that's, if you can hold that as like maybe the frame that you look at the seminar for. If nothing else, are you more aware of it, of where you are on this journey? And are you more, have you had more insight enough to understand a little bit more about where you'd like to move? And also, do you know where to get this information or resource if you wanted to move forward? So if you hold that as your mindset or prism for this seminar, that'd be great. So we're also offering a depiction of the journey. Again, this is a unique, this is an approach that was used on this particular project. It's a way of defining what it means to be on a journey. It might look different, it might sound different for you, but this is one that sort of looks at assessment, not just impact. That's something maybe I should highlight. Is in the beginning, there's assessment, and you assess for impact, you assess for organizational capacity, you assess for culture and behavior, you assess for everything in that initiative or that project. And then on the other side of the scale is your impact of scale, and how do you navigate financial viability? And what we're offering is to say, well, here are markers of what a financial viability here are markers on your journey to say, okay, I am either in the impact part of this journey, I'm just starting, or actually I feel like I'm in the financial viability space because some of these markers seem to be aligned to where I am or where I would like to be, right? So some of the key areas would be, you know, if you have to use the financial viability lens, do you have effective internal capacity and capability? Do you have robust financial models that are able to, you know, calculate all your costs, including capital investments? Do you have robust financial models that calculate benefits and values or profit? I would say values, not profit. Do you have an effective funding strategy that ensures enough revenue today to cover all your operational costs today? So some of these questions are just markers on that journey. It will look different for each organization. It's not exhaustive in any way. It really just aligns within the terms around what do we mean by financial viability. Yeah, and then maybe if you've done this and you've got an effective branding and marketing, your pricing and marketing research is mature, then you're moving more towards financial sustainability, right? This is about scale up options and prioritization. Again, the same things you're building on what you had in the financial viability, but what is needed more in this journey is your ability to generate surplus, your ability to change your funding models, your ability to think differently about your audience or your customers. I know there are many words I'm going to use here that might not be appropriate, but your ability to just go beyond. And what does that look like for you in terms of internal capacity, external capacity, internal skills? You know, so in a way, I feel like I'm talking at you because it's not interactive, but the idea is to hold on to this mindset of, or this kind of frame. The frame is really, where are you on this? And what I want to offer is that we are all on this financial viability journey. It just depends on where. If you're here, then you're on this journey. Are you at the beginning? Are you in the middle? Are you moving towards the, you know, towards sustainability? Are you more? So just holding the inquiry is, where are you? Where would you like to go to move to? And what resources are available for you? And the second part of this is to say, well, here's one resource that you can reflect on after the end of this call or the seminar, to say, okay, so I feel like I'm here, and based on the lessons that we've been shared today, I may be able to have a better understanding of how to, you know, do one thing or the other. So I think I'm gonna stop there. Yeah, and then just before we go into the sort of the weeds of it, pass on to Deborah to just kind of open the conversation around the actual case study.
Sure. Thanks so much, Senait. And as I share, please do continue to put your questions and comments in the chat. We'd love to hear how you're kind of thinking and processing as you listen to all of this. And what you see on the slide in front of you and really are reflections as Dignitas, having kind of gone through this process of really being presented with this challenge to think about our work with this financial viability and financial sustainability lens. So as I say, this is just, it's our experience, it's our journey. Some of it may resonate and some of it more than others, but here's some of the things we've learned along the way. The first thing, and certainly our experience as a social impact organization, has been that actually we need to have this understanding of financial viability right at the center of our understanding about impact. So we have to center an organizational understanding of impact, or even potential impact at scale, on value for money and cost effectiveness. It's not a dichotomy of either value for money or quality impact. It has to be both for long-term financial sustainability. You could almost ask, what use is impact if no one can afford to pay for it? So this is a really essential kind of line of questioning if we need to plan for that longer term and really think about what it means for us as an organization to have impact over the longer term. The second reflection we've captured here is we have to ensure that our board, our team, and our partners have the opportunity to engage with what the additional or maybe even removal of various income streams, what that implies for their identity, their processes, their structures, how we function, how we relate to each other and to others. our identity as nonprofit organizations is often really intrinsically tied to this kind of like adverse reaction to profit. And it seems to challenge really the very heart of our identity and often even our just purpose for being as a social impact organization. And so I think part of this conversation is that kind of shift in mindset that has been mentioned already, but really positioning new ways of thinking about financial viability as a means of strengthening our position, not watering down or weakening. When we first started talking with the team at Dignitas about diversifying income streams, some of the team saw it as a threat or a distraction. And how we opened up those conversations, acknowledged some of that discomfort, but also acknowledged what this looks like as part of the bigger picture, and really kind of how we define ourselves and how we, as I say, relate to each other, what our processes, our structures, and even our hiring support. It was really important to open up those conversations in ways that helped us to deepen our understanding of what it meant to explore this kind of financial sustainability lens. And I think that ties really closely to my next reflection, which was really that we have to, I think our tendency is to ignore. We have to rather acknowledge and begin to address this kind of ongoing challenge around how social impact and nonprofit organizations find the right culture and language to approach this subject. Language is everything. It shapes conversations, it shapes our interactions with each other, it shapes much of our identity and our purpose. And it's interesting to see kind of challenge and pushback within the sector, even to the name nonprofit. And in fact, I listened to somebody really make a case for nonprofit organizations being renamed to For Impact, as we are, after all, first and foremost, for impact, regardless of profit or otherwise. However, we exist in a world that has been shaped by a more kind of commercial and capitalist view of profit and all the language that goes with it. And so perhaps as social impact organizations kind of exploring and growing in this space, we almost need to frame and develop some new language, or maybe reclaim some language for us to be comfortable with terms like sales and customers and profit and marketing. All of these things can be tricky for us and our teams to get our head around. Another one of our insights, and I think this has been something we've seen across our work and everything we sought to understand about impact and growth, but it's that data is critically important. We all need data that supports our confidence in our product, our impact, and our value, and how we understand what impact or value means, whether to our board, to our team, to our partners, to our communities. How do we understand what data supports all of that, and how to use that data to drive the right kind of progress is really at the core of all of this. We can't assess cost, we can't understand benefit without having the right data. And so it's really important that we're collecting and kind of packaging and analyzing all of the data we have in the right ways to really understand what it means to be cost effective, to be financially viable, and indeed financially sustainable. It's a data-driven process. Further reflection from our team was that none of this really makes it easier to measure the economic gain linked to particular improvements in teaching and learning. It's kind of a perennial question, and some of the best economists have struggled with this for years. The most recent iteration, I think, is the work around LAYS, or learner adjusted years of schooling, as a measure of education programs' effectiveness. So is that the measure through which we will understand cost effectiveness? Is there some other global measure that we can have? Can we even have a measure that runs from one program to another and at different kinds of interventions? Or actually, do we need a different approach to how we understand the kind of economic value of education interventions, teaching and learning improvements, that kind of thing? And that really underpins much of what we want to see come out of these conversations, and where much of this conversation around financial viability can take us. And our final reflection as a team was that sometimes it's necessary to differentiate between the financial health of an organization as a whole and the financial viability of a particular program or initiative or product. It's, I think in our experience, more of a jigsaw puzzle than it is a kind of like one-time conversation, one neat packaged solution. So for example, one of the things that Senait will show you is that we worked a bit on what we call user payer segmentation, looking at different elements of programs, different relationships, where, for example, the user is the payer or the user is not the payer, who is the payer, what does that mean? And so kind of unpacking all this, I think, just brought to our attention that it's really critical to have the right people, the right expertise at the table for these conversations. And rather than it being a kind of finance team conversation, the programs team need to plug in, the government advocacy team need to plug in, because all of these teams have really rich, valuable insight that impacts how we think about who is the user, who is the payer, what is the relationship that makes this, this particular pathway financially viable or otherwise. So it really does have to be a whole team effort. And the insight, as I say, is not just from the accounts department, but much further afield. And I guess that maps to kind of what I would sum all of this up as, to say that this whole journey for us was about having a holistic view of our work, a holistic view of our investments day in, day out, a holistic view of kind of impact and cost as part of that impact. And that really then being core to how we think about ourselves as an organization, how we think about growth, how we think about scale. So yeah, I'll stop there for now and pass it back to Senait. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deborah. That was just such a great reflection and summary of the learning, you know, from an organizational perspective. I am conscious of time, so I think picking up on what you just said, Deborah, around some of the key things you mentioned, two things I'd like to pull on that string around data, and also just, this is financial viability, and therefore, I mean, it's marred with a lot of conversations around how do you assess, how do you put a financial value to a social impact service, right? Education, how do you put value? So that, and that's maybe the two things that we can hold on to as we look at the tools that we used. So I just wanted to say quickly here that this is based on, it's built, this particular case study around the tools is based on the LeadNow's impact assessment work. So it's just a build up also. If you think again back to the journey, there's the impact assessment work, and then we move to the financial viability building blocks, and trying to figure out a way of offering an approach to prioritization for scale up. Yeah. Okay. Next slide. Sorry, I was reading somebody message. So I don't know how, we don't have a lot of time. We could be here the whole day, but I thought I'll just quickly go through. I mean, if you've read the article, the business case, the case study, it will go into detail a little bit. But I just wanted to kind of reinforce a couple of points here. But so let me just go through. So in doing this, it's a joint work with the team and the different the LeadNow team, Deborah and her team, around what works, what frameworks. Right? In applying this, what frameworks for you? So again, unique to the organization. So just kind of starting from the usual sort of scope, be very clear, what is it that you're trying, what we're trying to do in terms of financial viability for Dignitas at that time. It was really just a building blocks, not actually doing the work, but just sort of saying, if we were to move towards financial sustainability, what are the things we need to consider? So that's what this is. The scope of this is to prepare LeadNow for the next stages of scale up. Second is just clearly based on that, sort of having an effective, simple roadmap that sort of builds your confidence to say, okay, you know, as we move from here, we can go to the next stage, and the next stage we can be able to plan our journey with confidence. Then a high-level plan, and then the point that Deborah mentioned, which is really critical of everything that is on this slide, the market research and pricing, which is basically part of the user pair segmentation piece, is really fundamental. Again, because we're talking about financial viability. So how do we assess financial value? Which goes back to what we mean by that, you know? So we can talk a little bit about that in the next slide. And then deciding what financial viability model will work for that organization is key. In this case, there's so many different types of models that I researched and worked with Deborah to sort of say which one works for you, which is the most effective for what you're looking for. And we went for the calculating just benefit cost ratio and being able to just use that to assess current LeadNow program financial viability, but also be able to have an approach to choose what would be best for the scale up. So that's what we use. But then again, when you consider about your organization, that might not work for you based on what your unique situation is. And then that leads up to the benefits cost benefit model. And then the last part is just really an organizational resource assessment. Again, all of this won't matter much if we don't have an internal reflection on the capacity and the skill sets of the organization. What do we need? What does the organization need to be in terms of capacity and capability to be able to effectively implement this? What are the skill sets? What type of roles have been shifted, changed? What is the change and behavior mindset that needs to shift? What are the conversations we need to have around our priorities and our investment? Yeah. Okay. So I think that's it. So if I can, just checking on time, maybe spend the next 5 minutes, if you allow me to just maybe talk a little bit about the user payer segmentation bit. So roadmap is, I mean, this is a roadmap that, again, you can be able to look at the case study to show you that, it's very important to be able to allocate milestones for each, but it shows you the roadmap that you could consider. So the part, next slide, please. The part that is really, I would say the belly of the beast, sorry for using that term, is really understanding at the fork of impact and sustainability, social impact, is the concept of financial, the financial value, the financial ability, having enough revenue generated to run your operational costs, but also to be able to have enough surplus to expand. Some of the questions that you had in the registration included things like, when do we introduce fee-paying services? What does that mean to be able to move from in terms of identity, move from a free service to a fee-paying service? So a lot of that has to kind of come down to a part of the social impacts organization's mindset around what do we mean by, who do we define as our user, customer, client, who's gonna pay for this service? I think if it's gonna be blunt, is who's paying for this service? How much do you need to maintain operations? How much do you need to be able to have surplus? I mean, that's bottom line of it. So an attempt to unpack that complex knot for Dignitas was to sort of use this framework. And this was an approach to sort of say, okay, so in what context are we having each of these profiles defined? Yeah. So we have the government, B2C, B2B. And for each of these stakeholders, right, it's part of the stakeholder engagement, stakeholder sort of segmentation. Basic questions is, who's using the service? Who's paying for the service? And this is not a simple task, right? Because this then goes into it hits our current kind of comfort, but also current sort of structure of how we define value, right? So the big part of the benefit cost ratio funding model required us to be very clear about how we define our expenses. What is a cost? I mean, we're very good at that. We know how much it's going to cost, but we're very good at it from a unit, so 1-to-1, right? We're good at that. Then you have to have a whole assessment of what is the benefit, what's the financial value put to this. So that's where we kind of spent a lot of the time. If there's one learning I would say was around getting to the point of calculating financial value to allow you as an organization to have enough revenue generated, but also surplus for you to scale up. I would say that would be like the majority of the untangling we were trying to do. And I think Dignitas did a great job of, one, immediately being very clear about who their user segments are and doing the work around each of the user audience, what's their need, what role do they play, are they potential payers or not? And then we had next steps for each to sort of say, okay, so then from here, then how do we create a plan and how does it inform our roadmap? So I think I'm going to stop there because I'm conscious of time. And like I said, I knew that this, and so I just 1 minute on this is to say, what do I say about this? It's really the cost benefit analysis model that we chose for Dignitas, very clearly built on the work that's been done before with GSF, but also part of the impact at scale. Very clear on the overall cost. So we had a clear clarity on overall cost. We needed to work on the benefits bit. The yellow bit is around benefits, right? So can you quantify the benefits value-wise? What about how do we then make assumptions around the non-quantifiable benefits? How can we put what is the value corresponding to that particular non-quantifiable benefit, right? And then from there, be able to get a sense of what's your benefit cost ratio, and then be able to make decisions based on this and really feel confident that you have enough data. And I know we've rushed on this one but it's really a key part of this is to say it is a big reframe, right? And a shift in perspective and mindset around how do we define value in the financial language, right? How do you put a financial value on the non-quantifiable benefits? Then plug that in and then navigate where you are. So if I could stop here and maybe give people enough time to maybe do a bit of Q&A, but also just remind us to go back to that sort of framing that we started off with that says, if any of the conversations we've had, some of the really good learning from Dignitas, a reflection on, does it help you, does this steer or nudge your thinking around where could I be on this journey? Like, what can I take from this conversation, but also the case study and everything else that's around the Global School Forum sort of offering and resources to say, I'd like to do this next, but I feel a bit more confident about where I might be on this journey. This is what I'm going to say, and I'm going to open it up. If there's any final words, Deborah, before we open it to the next.
No final words, just thank you to both Senait and Global School Forum for the whole journey. It's, as I say, been one really rich in learning and growth, but keen to hear if others have questions or insights just in the last few minutes that we have. I did try and address a couple in the chat, sorry, but if you want to voice something that you've put in the chat, also feel free to unmute and do that.
Hi, everyone. It's Senait here. Thank you very much for sharing. I think one thing that interests me is in terms of when you moved from non-paying to paying, what was the most difficult thing to overcome? Because outside of organizational limitations and even funders who might think that you now want to make profits and why do they need to support you, from a user and a community perspective, how did you get around that?
Super interesting question, and I think really relevant as well. So just to be clear, as part of this journey in Dignitas, we were looking at adding additional pathways where there is kind of a paid component, rather than converting non-paying users to paying users. And I think that's a really important distinction because in my experience in Dignitas and elsewhere, it's very difficult to convert users from non-paying to paying, especially when that wasn't presented as part of the part of the journey at the beginning. So you didn't enroll users saying that after 6 months of free trial, then we're going to charge you. And it's really tricky because whether the service is free or paid for or not is so wrapped up in your users' understanding of who you are as an organization, what your commitment to them is, and their relationship with you, sometimes even simply by the title that you are a nonprofit. So I think it's actually really complex to convert users in that way. And that's why at Dignitas, we thought rather to kind of have an alternative kind of additional pathway where we would pursue these paid users. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, thank you.
We have additional questions in the chat. There are two that have not. Okay, I think Deborah has responded to one. But yeah, I'll see them out. And the first is, could you expand on the idea of financial health and how it ties to overall organizational health? I'm curious to hear specifically whether any tensions arise between particular programs and initiatives within the organizations. And if so, how do you navigate such tensions? The second question quickly is, when you say diversifying income streams, what are different ways smaller organizations can do this? So I guess it's open to both Senait and Deborah.
Senait, do you want to respond first, then I can jump in?
Yes,
yeah,
please.
no, I think the conversation around health, right? Like, and I think I'd be curious to know from your perspective also, Deborah. I think financial health, I put in this spectrum, again, if I look at the spectrum of the journey in the assessment, it's really to do with, from my perspective, it's to do with really being attuned to having the processes in place to be able to capture, but also have the culture and mindset of operational cost is not really just project-based, it's like a broader thing, right? So I think one of the things that I found in the different works that I do with clients is the idea of financial health is really just how many donors do we have, how many funders do we have, is it aligned to the expenses of that project? I think there's a broader conversation, the broader sort of mindset around being financially, not how to say, without competent in the processes and skills that we have around revenue. And I think it would be interesting to know your take on this, Deborah.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I did reply to that comment in the chat, but I think, I guess I would say there's no organizational health without financial health, but at the same time, there are many other components of organizational health.
Yeah.
And I think part of that, as Senait has pointed to, is a broader competence around finance that also recognizes that as you cost projects, are you kind of charging into that opportunities for growth and team and overhead and all the other costs that we know come with being a really successful organization, and having some processes and things in around like that. I think I know we have 2 minutes left, so let me quickly jump to a couple of the other questions in the chat. So I saw there was also the other one you pointed to, Habib, around diversifying income streams for small organizations. It's really tricky, and I think that the biggest resource that goes into financial sustainability is human resource. Whether it's the right finance staff who are supporting kind of accounts and financial management, or whether it's the right fundraising partnerships, even sales staff. And so I think it's really, it's not a one size fits all answer. It's really a question of what strengths do you have on your team, and within the broader team around you, which might include volunteers, your board, other partners. What strengths do you have, and how do you lean into those strengths? And because I don't think there's one pathway that works for every organization. I think it really has to be a kind of strength asset-based approach to understanding yourself and your organization. And then I saw Ashley's question by diversifying income. Is it always necessary? When you primarily fundraise from primary foundations, receive strong suggestions from board and others to diversify, takes a lot of resource given lack of transparency and networks in that space. I think, to be honest, my answer to this would almost be the same as the answer to the previous question, that it really is about kind of a strength assets-based approach. So if you have in your networks 10 high net worth individuals who have their checkbooks at the ready, I know it's not that simple, then absolutely pursue that as a strategy. But if that's not something that's within reach, within your networks or your skill sets, then I don't think it should be a priority. So I think it's a case of as you look around yourself and your own resources, really understanding where are you best placed to kind of strike, as it were, what are you best placed to do based on the experience, the expertise, the skill sets that you have on your board or on your team or in your kind of networks. Yeah, I think we've covered all the questions, and it's exactly, well, 3 o'clock on my end, 1 p.m. on yours, I believe, Habib.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this has been great. But before we round off, we have one more poll. So I'll crave your indulgence for a few extra minutes to participate in that poll. That helps us understand how well this session has gone before you start to drop off. I'm launching the poll now. Yes. In that time, it's a nice thing to remind us all that we have the Impact at Scale Toolkit, which contains case studies around this session, for example, on how Dignitas is navigating the financial viability journey, but even a lot more resources that you find useful across the DVF. And by the DVF, we mean case studies and tools that can help you strengthen your solution or your approach to delivering your solution. Case studies and tools that could help you examine how well you're doing viability-wise. So questions around how do we venture into new markets? How do we manage our sales requirements? And also tools that focus on feasibility, so things around stakeholder mapping, assessment of your impact, and basically other things that help your journey at scale. And finally, we also have like really nice case studies from organizations like Kidogo, who discussed how they scaled in the past. So please spend some time on that toolkit, and you'll find a lot of resources that will continue to improve over time. Also a nice point to thank Deborah and Senait for their insight. This has been extremely valuable, and we hope to continue to have more conversations with the community on financial viability, because yeah, a lot of people continue to show interest and find more dynamic ways on engaging members of the community to strengthen their financial viability, because over time, that helps the resilience of the organizations in our community. Thank you so much. Feel free to start the drop off if we don't have any final comments after you're done with the poll. Hey. I think everyone else is gone now. Thank you very much tonight. I'll end the call now, and I think we can continue our conversation this way.
Bye.
Bye.